Hey Kipsters, we're looking at objectives 2.8.4 through 5. That's percent change and the percent of a number. The standard is not actually 7NS 1.2, it's 7NS 1.7. You should expect to see 5 or 6 questions on the CST for this standard alone. It's a really important one. So we're going to look at 2 different skills here. The first is how you estimate and calculate the percent of a number. So for all these examples, we're going to calculate the percent of each number, but we're going to use our estimate to make sure it makes sense. Number 1, estimate and calculate 12% of 80. I'm going to estimate it first, then show you how to calculate it, and then you're going to try yourself. So if I want to estimate 12% of 80, the first thing I'll do is use this eye chart that we used before. I'll have 0% down here, and 1%, 100% here. And I know that I'm trying to find a percent of 80, so 100% is 80, and 0% is 0. I'm going to try to estimate where 12% is. Let's think, here's about 50%. 12% is probably about here. So let's say 12% is right there. So if I were to estimate what 12% of 80 would be, I don't know, let's maybe say close to 10, about. So my answer should be close to 10 when we get it. So that's the estimation part. The second part is to actually calculate. In order to calculate 12% of 80, the very first thing I'll do, 12% of 80, is to convert 12% into a decimal. 12% as a decimal, I move my decimal place because it's really right there, 2 places to turn a percent to a decimal, and this is really 12 hundredths. And I will multiply times the number. 12 hundredths times 80. And that will actually get me the actual answer. So in order to do that, I'll multiply 12 hundredths times 80. I'll do that right here. 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 8 is 16. Skip a spot. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 8 is 8. Add them up. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 0 is 6. 8 plus 1 is 9. And then, since I have moved my decimal 2 places in my factor, I'll move 2 places in my answer, or my product. And the actual answer is 9 and 60 hundredths, or 9 and 6 tenths. So that's the actual calculation. Just to make sure it makes sense, I will compare it to my estimation. And you can see that my estimate of 10 was pretty close. The actual answer is 9 and 6 tenths. So 12% of 80 is 9 and 6 tenths. I'd like you to try now. Start by drawing an eye chart on your paper and estimate first 8% of 60. Stop the video here and then press play when you're ready to check your estimate before we go on to calculate it. So you're just doing the estimate and then press play after you've estimated. Okay, you've estimated 8% of 60. You should have had 100% here, 0% there. You're finding a percent of 60. And you try to figure out where 8% is. So 8%, let's see, it's probably a little less than last time, so it's pretty low, maybe about there. 80% of 60, your estimate should have been close to, I don't know, let's say 5. So that's the estimate part. Now your job is to calculate it. Please calculate 8% of 60. Stop the video here and press play when you're ready to check your answer. Okay, you should have tried finding 8% of 60 to actually calculate it. The very first thing you do is convert 8% to a decimal. In order to do that, you move your decimal 1, 2 places. And this is really 8 hundredths times 60. And then you needed to multiply them. If you did that, 8 hundredths times 60 would have gotten you exactly 4 8 tenths. And so if your estimate was anywhere close to 5, it does make sense that your estimate, 4 8 tenths, is pretty close to 5. And the actual answer is 4 8 tenths. Second skill we're going to look at is how you estimate and calculate percent of change. That's a different idea. That's an idea of if something moves or changes, what percent of the original value did it change? And the way we talked about this before was using a formula in order to calculate. And we'll actually do the calculating first. That'll be our first step. So in order to calculate the percent change, what we're going to do is use this formula as new minus old over the original value. And so what we're really figuring out here is first, how much did it change divided by the original value. And so if something goes, let's say a body weight from 60 to 75 pounds, I know that 60 was the old value and 75 is now the new value, someone gained weight. And so to find the percent change, I'll plug those things in. That's really 75 minus 60 over the old value, which was 60. And my goal is to turn this fraction into a percent. So 70 minus 60 is 15 over 60. I can simplify it. And if I simplify this fraction, it's really 1/4. And 1/4 I need to turn into a percent. If I turn 1/4 into a decimal, it would be 0 and 25/100ths, which I know is the same as 25%. So what we're going to say here is that this is a 25% increase. That means of this person's original body weight, they gained an additional 25%. To show you that visually, and now we'll get to actually the estimation to make sure it makes sense with what we know. I know that we were starting at 60 pounds, which would have been 100% of the original body weight. So this is how I'd set up my chart. This person went from 60 to 75 pounds, so they got actually heavier. And so if their body weight increased to 75 pounds, it's about an increase of 25%, which would be 125% of the person's original weight. They gained 25% of their original weight. I'd like you to try now, find the percent change from $8 to $10. So like an increase in the store. After you find the percent of change, then try to use the eye chart to see if it makes sense. Press stop here, press play when you're ready to check your answer. Okay. You've tried to calculate the percent change from $8 to $10. The very first thing you should have done is labeled the new and the old. You know that the old value was $8, that's how much it used to cost. The new value was 10, that's how much it costs now. Next, you actually need to plug them in. So this would have been new $10 minus old $8 over old, which is $8. Simplify this is really 2/8. Simplify that, that's really 1/4. And again, same deal, this becomes 25/100ths, which is the same thing as 25%. This was a 25%, in this case, increase. So if you had 25% increase, that part was correct. Now check to see whether you did the eye chart correctly. You know that 100% of the original value would have been $8, so 0% would have been $0. And this was going from $8 to $10, which would have been about, I don't know, maybe right here. So even though it increased by $2, it increased by 25%. So at 125%, that's $10. So it looks about visually correct. Now it's time for independent practice. I'm not going to ask you to do the eye charts for the percent change, but I will ask you to make sure you're able to calculate it. Please calculate the percent of each number. These three correspond to the first slide. Then find the percent of change for these last three. And remember, for a percent of change, it's always new minus old over old. Hopefully that'll help you for those three. If you submit these independent practice and you do all of them, you should be ready for objective assessment 2A.4 through 5. Good.